Have you been hurt by those you trusted? Nietzsche explains why. Introduction. A familiar pain in a familiar face. It always starts innocently, doesn't it? You trust someone, your best friend, your partner, your mentor, maybe even your sibling. You share your dreams, your secrets, your insecurities, believing that what you give in loyalty will be returned in kindness. But one day you discover the truth. They lied, they left, they used you, or they betrayed you. And just like that, the floor beneath your world cracks open. You ask yourself, why did I not see this coming? Why does it hurt this much? If you're reading this, perhaps you've experienced it too. The colleague who took credit for your work, the partner who broke promises, the family member who ignored your needs, the friend who disappeared when you needed them most. We carry the scars of trust betrayed like invisible ink on our hearts, only visible under pressure when we least expect it. This pain, raw, destabilizing, deeply personal, is not new, and it's not unique. Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher often caricatured for his critique of morality and religion, spoke profoundly about betrayal, trust, and human weakness. To Nietzsche, trust is not just a moral obligation, but a risky act of will, a leap of faith in a world he believed was ruled more by power than love. So why do people betray us? Why does it hurt so deeply? What can Nietzsche teach us about this quiet catastrophe of the soul? Let's begin. Part 1. The cause. Why the people we trust hurt us. To understand betrayal, we must first understand trust. Trust, in essence, is a gamble. You offer vulnerability in exchange for loyalty. But what makes betrayal from someone close so devastating is that the harm isn't just external. It strikes at the foundation of our identity, our self-worth, and our belief in humanity. Nietzsche believed that human beings are not purely moral creatures driven by goodness. Instead, he argued on the genealogy of morality, that we are driven by deeper forces, desire, fear, insecurity, and most of all, will to power, our innate drive to assert control and elevate ourselves. It is this very drive that can turn people we love into sources of pain. Here are 3 core Nietzschean explanations for why betrayal occurs. The will to power over relationship. According to Nietzsche, individuals seek to grow their power, not necessarily in material terms, but in influence, validation, and self-worth. When someone betrays you, it is often not because they intended to hurt you, but because your loyalty became inconvenient to their rise. Your presence reminded them of their guilt, their obligation, or their weakness. A colleague might undercut you not out of hatred, but because their ambition to rise overpowers their loyalty to you. A lover might lie because facing the truth would cost them their freedom. In Nietzsche's world, power often trumps affection, especially when self-interest is at stake. Resentment and the reversal of values. Nietzsche introduced the idea of ressentiment, a deep psychological state where individuals, feeling powerless or inferior, begin to resent those who have what they desire: status, confidence, or freedom. This resentment can lead to betrayal cloaked in moral superiority. For example, a friend may accuse you of being selfish when, in truth, they are envious of your independence. Their betrayal might come disguised as righteousness, but Nietzsche would see it as the expression of powerlessness masked by moral judgment. The illusion of altruism. Nietzsche did not believe in pure altruism. He argued that most acts of goodness are actually self-serving. People are kind because it makes them feel good, or because it serves a social purpose. So when someone turns against you, Nietzsche would say they were never fully committed to you, but to the image of the relationship that served their own emotional needs. Thus, when those needs change, when loyalty no longer benefits them, they walk away. Part 2. The process. How betrayal unfolds and breaks us. The moment of betrayal is rarely a clean cut. It's more like a slow, invisible fracture that finally gives way. One day it's a missed call, then a promise broken. A strange distance creeps in. Your instincts whisper something's wrong, but your trust silences them. And then, the rupture. This is the process of betrayal, a sequence of emotional and existential events that unravel a person from within. Nietzsche was not a psychologist in the modern sense, but his philosophy anticipated the depth of emotional collapse we now recognize in trauma. Let's walk through the stages, through both lived experience and Nietzschean analysis. The shock. This can't be real. At first, there's disbelief. When someone you trust hurts you, your mind doesn't know where to go. It's not just that a promise was broken, it's that your internal map of who that person was, what they meant, and how the world works suddenly malfunctions. Nietzsche, in The Gay Science, spoke of the shattering of illusions as a form of awakening. He believed that we create comforting narratives to give our lives stability, but when betrayal hits, those narratives crumble. The illusion is broken, and we are forced to confront the chaotic truth beneath comfort. This stage is often marked by denial, confusion, and grief, not just for the person, but for the self who believed in them. The despair. Was I not enough? Once the reality sinks in, we often turn the blame inward. Why didn't I see it? Did I trust too much? Am I not worthy of loyalty? Nietzsche would say this self-blame arises because we are trained by society to moralize our suffering. We search for fault, for sin, for reasons why we were abandoned. But he urges us to go deeper. The betrayal isn't a moral failure on your part. It is an inevitable risk of living authentically. This is the heart of Nietzsche's existential view. To live without risk is not to live at all. You were betrayed because you dared to trust, and that is both your strength and your exposure. The rage. How dare they? After despair comes anger. This is a necessary and even healthy emotion. It is your psyche reclaiming power, setting boundaries, and demanding justice. But Nietzsche warns us, rage can rot into resentment. In On the Genealogy of Morality, he explains that when we remain stuck in anger, we create a morality of the victim, where our identity is formed not by strength, but by being wronged. Instead of letting pain harden into vengeance, Nietzsche urges us to transcend it, to grow stronger through it. He asks us not to be defined by betrayal, but by what we become in response to it. The meaning-making. What does this teach me? This is the turning point. Nietzsche famously said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." In betrayal, the deepest healing begins not when the pain disappears, but when we understand its place in our personal evolution. The pain becomes not just something to endure, but something to use. This doesn't mean justifying the betrayal. It means transmuting it, converting the emotional lead into philosophical gold. This stage is the birth of the Übermensch, or the Overman, a Nietzschean idea of the person who rises beyond traditional morality to create their own values, forged in the fire of suffering. Part 3. The consequences. What betrayal does to the self. Betrayal doesn't just hurt, it changes us. Nietzsche recognized that suffering has the power to either shrink us or expand us. He did not romanticize pain, but he saw it as the forge where the authentic self is born. Let's examine the dual nature of what betrayal can do to a person. The wound. Fear, distrust, and emotional guarding. The most obvious consequence is emotional armor. After being hurt, many people vow never to trust again. Relationships become transactional. Vulnerability becomes weakness. We begin to live in a state of guarded detachment. Nietzsche would caution us here. While self-protection is natural, too much of it can prevent true connection. In trying to never be hurt again, we also cut ourselves off from the very things that make life meaningful. We trade the danger of betrayal for the emptiness of isolation. The awakening, clarity, independence, and inner strength. But betrayal can also become a crucible. Nietzsche celebrated those who faced hardship and emerged more awake, more free, more fearless. Betrayal can teach you who is truly loyal. It can shatter delusions and reveal hidden strength. It can force you to develop self-reliance not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. This is what Nietzsche calls amor fati, the love of one's fate. Not just acceptance, but love for even the painful parts, because they shape the person you are becoming. Excellent. Let's move into part 4, applying Nietzsche's insights in modern life, and then continue straight into part 5, strategies for healing, growth, and the shadow side of solutions. Part 4, modern-day applications, Nietzsche in the age of social media, career, and intimacy. Nietzsche lived in the 19th century, but his insights have never been more relevant than they are now. In a time when trust is fragile, relationships are transactional, and people curate identities like products. We live in a world of constant exposure, yet emotional disconnection. The stakes of betrayal have become both hyper-visible and harder to process. Let's look at 3 major areas of modern life where Nietzsche's philosophy helps us understand betrayal and offers a lens through which to respond. In relationships, the disposability dilemma. In the age of dating apps, ghosting, and emotional minimalism, trust has become risky business. Many fear that opening up leads to being discarded when someone better comes along. Loyalty often feels outdated, replaced by the illusion of infinite options. Nietzsche would argue that modern relationships suffer from a loss of depth and courage. He believed love should not be sentimental attachment, but willful choice, filled with risk and responsibility. Real trust, to him, is not passive, it's defiant. Application. If you've been betrayed in love, don't respond by becoming numb. Instead, choose future connections consciously, not cynically. Nietzsche would urge you to love as an act of strength, not as a need. In the workplace, ambition over integrity. In careers, people often betray one another for status, promotions, or survival. Trust between colleagues is rare in hyper-competitive environments, where vulnerability is seen as weakness and power games are the norm. Nietzsche would say this is the will to power at its most unchecked, but he'd also challenge you to not become a victim of it. Instead, create your own path. Don't rely on systems of validation that reward betrayal. Application. You can be ambitious without imitating those who harm. Cultivate your own values. Refuse to become what hurt you. In identity, the betrayal of the self. Perhaps the deepest betrayal in the modern world is the one we commit against ourselves. We mute our voice to fit in. We pretend to be someone we're not. We betray our intuition to avoid conflict. Nietzsche's ultimate message is this: become who you are, not who society says you should be, not who others expect. When others betray us, they give us a gift. They show us the cost of living dishonestly. And that, paradoxically, is how betrayal can make us more whole. Part 5, practical strategies, healing, growth, and the shadow side of solutions. So how do we move forward when we've been hurt by those we trusted? How do we rebuild not just our relationships, but our sense of self? Nietzsche doesn't offer therapy manuals, but he provides something deeper, a philosophical framework for transforming pain into power. Let's break this into 4 actionable strategies, each with benefits and potential dangers. Strategy: radical self-honesty. What it means: sit with the truth of what happened, not the version that makes you look better or worse, but the honest, unfiltered experience. Accept your pain, your part, your innocence, and your vulnerability. Nietzschean support. Nietzsche wrote, "The strength of a person's spirit would then be measured by how much truth he could tolerate. Truth, no matter how brutal, is the first step toward freedom. Benefits: freedom from illusion, emotional clarity, a deeper understanding of your needs. Shadow side: too much self-analysis can turn into self-blame. Radical honesty must be paired with compassion, or it becomes another form of cruelty. Strategy: rebuilding boundaries without closing the heart. What it means: set limits, say no, know who deserves access to your inner world and who doesn't. Nietzschean support: he saw boundaries not as walls but as expressions of personal will. To say no is to say yes to yourself. Benefits: protection, self-respect, reduced risk of repeated betrayal. Shadow side: if taken too far, boundaries become emotional walls. You stop trusting anyone. You become cold, distant, lonely. Nietzsche would say this is fear masquerading as strength. Strategy: transcendence through creation. What it means: channel your pain into something meaningful. Art, work, writing, new connections. Don't just survive betrayal, create from it. Nietzschean support: the Übermensch is not born from comfort. He or she is forged in fire. Nietzsche said, one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. Benefits: emotional catharsis, growth, meaning-making. Shadow side: productivity can become a mask. You may create to avoid feeling. True transcendence requires you to first feel the weight of pain, not just bury it in achievement. Strategy: amor fati, love your fate. What it means: don't just accept the betrayal, embrace it as necessary to your becoming, not because it was good, but because it made you more you. Nietzschean's support: amor fati is the crown jewel of Nietzsche's philosophy. To love one's fate means to love even the pain, even the betrayal, because it's part of your personal myth. Benefits: deep peace, detachment from resentment, inner resilience. Shadow side: misinterpreted, this idea can lead to spiritual bypassing. Loving your fate doesn't mean excusing abuse. It means choosing what you do with what happened, not pretending it didn't hurt. Conclusion: betrayal as the beginning, not the end. To be betrayed by those you trusted is one of life's deepest wounds. But Nietzsche challenges us to go further. He invites us not to be defined by the wound, but by how we walk out of it. Yes, trust is risky. Yes, people can be cruel. But if we let that close us off from life, we lose more than our relationships. We lose our capacity to become. Nietzsche calls us to a higher standard, to trust again, not because people are perfect, but because we are strong enough to survive the imperfection. The pain of betrayal is real, but so is the transformation that can follow. You can become wiser without becoming bitter, stronger without becoming hard, and more truthful without losing your hope. So the next time you ask, why did they hurt me? Remember this: because you dared to trust, and that is the beginning of greatness.